turning them on and getting close enough to them. That's right. And this is, I just realized, that's supposed to be hot, but it isn't. Because I put this in, so when people are here and then they come over here and they're talking and you can't hear them.
Yeah.
Although we're seeing this getting used less and less people get footage. I'll get that fixed too.
But anyway, thank you.
Oh, sure. When people are using the mics, are you hearing okay back there?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Better.
Oh my gosh, I think incredibly better.
Good.
So
Good.
thank you for that.
Absolutely. Howard's on. And Bill.
This meeting is being recorded and/or transcribed.
I'll go ahead and get started with the planning commission meeting August 5th. All rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would just like the whole department to move an item from the agenda from new business up to the number one item. So unless there's any other objections to me moving that, I will let Lisa come up here and explain why she's here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys doing that for me. The item before you is a resolution and plan amendment that was approved by the Fishers Redevelopment Commission. And basically what this item does is a procedural step amending the economic development plan for the Geist area, so the Southeast Economic District, the Geist West Economic Redevelopment Area, and the Geist North Economic Development Area. And by approving this, you allow the Geist Park, facilitate the development of the park and recreational amenities. Are there any questions?
And just to clarify, Lisa, this
Yeah.
is really a procedural step.
Yes.
City Council has already approved all of the measures
Yes.
that relate to this. It's just kind of a check the box thing. that
It's a
it
check the
has be
box
done
to
in a
say
public
that-
meeting at Planning Commission.
to say that we've been to planning commission, we have amended the plan to include the park and its amenities in what we want for that area.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? I have a motion, do I have a second? I have a second. We might as well do a roll call vote since I have people online, Kay.
Correct.
So let's go ahead and do a roll call vote if you don't mind.
Very good. Mr. Stewart,
Aye.
Mr. Zimmerman is
Do you
not-
hear me?
Is Mr. Zimmerman on the line?
No, he's not online. We got your vote, Bill.
You got it?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Mr.
Thank
Fink?
you.
Yes, aye.
Ms. Logan? Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Is Mr. Moulter online? No. Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. DeReamer? Mr. Richards? Ms. Kelly? And Mr. Harling is not with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you, Lisa. All right, moving on to the regular agenda. It looks like we have one item on the agenda tonight.
Well, Pete, first we should have done roll call and then the minutes
I
first.
apologize for
Before,
that. I just pulled it up online, so I just saw that.
no problem.
Can I have a motion to approve the previous planning commission meeting minutes from, is that right, March 11th?
That is correct.
Yes, that
From
is
March
correct.
11th. I have a motion, do I have a second? I have a second. Can we do, you need a roll call again? Okay, roll call again.
Mr. Stewart?
Aye.
Mr. Zimmerman? Mr. Fain? Ms. Logan? Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Moulter? Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. DeReamer? Mr. Richards? Ms. Kelly? Thank you.
Motion passes. Now we'll move to the public hearing on the Grantham PUD project.
For the record, Jesse Beauchelle with Planning and Zoning. The item before you is RZ 1913 Grantham PUD. The subject site is located at the corner of Southeastern Parkway and 113th Street. Site consists of two properties that have a combined total of 5 parcels on 158 acres. Properties included in this proposed project are zoned R2 and ER, 147 acres of that being zoned R2, 11 being ER. Just to give you some background information, this subject property and this whole area in Northeast Fishers was originally under the city of Noblesville's jurisdiction for planning and zoning. When it came under the town of Fishers jurisdiction, everything was zoned R2 in this area. And so around 2011, 2012, there was a program that was started that allowed for properties out in this area to either revert back to ER or ag so that they can enjoy bigger accessory structures, farm, that sort of thing. As such, just showing you historical zoning, this is from 2013, all R2. You see right here in 2014, start seeing the ER rezone, 2016 ER rezone, and the addition of Welchel Springs that went through in 2015. The proposed Grantham PUD proposes a maximum of 290 lots on 158 acres. This proposed will have a pedestrian connectivity throughout the whole development, having 4 miles of trail, and will be extending the City of Fishers trail network along 113th Street and Southeastern Parkway. Grantham PUD will be broken up into 3 districts, having different product types and ranges of lot sizes. The districts will be as follows: the Executive District, the Family District, and the Professional District. As part of this project, the developer will be maintaining the existing estate gate wall feature and will be extending this along 113th Street, so it will connect at the end of to Southeastern Parkway. The developer will also be maintaining as many trees as possible along 113th Street to maintain the existing tree canopy. As many people know, this is a beautiful area in Fishers, and so the developer wants to maintain that to keep that as a feature when you enter. The gate feature, as mentioned, will be maintained and utilized as part of this project. This will be used, maintained mostly for the executive district, making this into district a gated community. To maintain the natural area and the gate feature, the developer will be utilizing one entrance and one exit gate so the naturalness of the area can be maintained. Lot sizes in this district will be at a minimum of 11,700 square feet and will be 90 feet wide. Single-story homes located in this district will be a minimum of 2,000 square feet, and two-story will be a minimum of 2,400 square feet, and will be following the R3 standards set by our UDO. Lots in the executive district that have the black circle in the middle that are directly adjacent to Nestledown Farms will be 33% larger than the R2 standard lots, which are required to be at a minimum 15,000 square feet. For reference, these lots will be 100 feet wide and 200 feet deep. Homes built on these lots will also have four-sided brick on the first floor elevation, and at the price point that these homes will be at, they will have elevated architectural features on the rear of these homes as well. Developer has also agreed to increase the amount of landscaping on the rear of these lots, providing 3 evergreen trees to be planted within 30 feet of the rear property line per lot to also provide additional screening to Nestledown Farms. For reference, these are some of the proposed elevations for the executive district. Home prices will begin at $500,000 and are expected to be over $800,000. Just so you know, all of these elevations that you will see tonight, they were approved at PUD earlier this evening. Next district is the family district. Lots in the family district will follow R5 standards with a minimum lot size of 9,000 square feet and will be 75 feet wide. Home sizes will range from single story starting at 1,800, two-story 2,200, and homes in this district will range from 350,000 to 475,000. The third district will be the professional district. This district is targeted towards empty nesters as well as young professionals, targeting those who want less yard to maintain with high quality amenities, so having less that they have to maintain while being able to enjoy their home more. Lots in this district will be a minimum of 6,000 square feet and will be 50 feet wide, and the prices will start at the mid-300s. The north boundary of the professional district will have additional landscaping. There will be 9 trees per 100 lineal feet, and they shall be planted within 30 feet of the north boundary. There will be a mixture of deciduous and evergreen trees to add for additional screening, and the additional landscaping is comparable to what a commercial project would have to put if it was going next to a residential project. So it does, exceed the requirements. And all garage doors will face inward to the street, and none will face directly to Southeastern Parkway. So the rear of these homes that are next to Southeastern Parkway will now just have the rear elevation facing the street instead of the garage doors. Just going over the comprehensive plan, the City of Fishers 2040 comprehensive plan has designated this area as low-density suburban residential, meaning that this area is fit for residential as low densities between 1 to 2 dwelling units per acre. Subject property or project seeks 1.84 dwelling units per acre, meeting the designation that was adopted in the 2040 plan. Just to give you a breakdown, overall development is seeking to have 290 lots on 158 acres by right. This zoning that is in place, the developer could construct 261 homes without even rezoning this property. A difference of 29 lots. As such, the density is not very substantial. We did receive a lot of public comment regarding this project. Many of the comments coming via phone and email. The following concerns have been voiced: traffic concerns, overcrowding of schools, overbuilding, too many rooftops, ruining the natural area that it currently exists in this part of Fishers, and the sustainability of the project, meaning will it, thrive for years to come, or will it just be a bunch of empty lots? The developer and the developer's legal representative have worked with many of the residents that have had concerns related to traffic. A letter from A&F was provided in the petitioner packet. This letter was provided in the early stages when the project was proposing 314 lots, so when it was more intense and had more entrances and exits onto Southeastern Parkway. Since that time, they have eliminated 24 lots and have also eliminated entrances onto Southeastern Parkway, so it's not as intense development. And Jason Taylor, the Director of Engineering, is on the line and can answer questions further regarding traffic if you have any after this. One of the things that you got in your packet and was passed out before was regarding the subject property north of the professional district. was talking about the density. I just wanted to throw this out here that 11 of the acres that are part of this professional district are ER, but 5 are zoned R2. In total, you know, by right, they are allowed to have 10 homes that would be adjacent to this property going on the west boundary and on the south boundary. With what is being proposed, there's 18, so there's a difference of 8. So, you know, there is an increase in density, but it is not, with the developer adding additional significant amount of landscaping, it should help with the screening of that. The Department of Planning and Zoning is supportive of the proposed Grantham PUD. Staff believes that the density that is being proposed will not adversely affect the area, as the maximum lots for this project is 290, when today 261 lots are allowed by right. The Grantham PUD will be complementary in site design and architecture to the surrounding area, and as part of the rezone process, the petitioner has agreed to annex the subject land into the City of Fishers. The petitioner is here to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. For the record, my name is Steve Harden. I'm a partner in the law firm of Fagery Drinker and a resident here in Fishers, and I'm pleased to be here representing Platinum Properties in their proposed Grantham project. Jesse did a great job of walking you through the history of the project. I will say that during the pandemic, we had a virtual neighbors meeting a couple months ago. It was not the easiest thing to do, and so what we offered everybody was anyone that was interested to have an on-site meeting. Paul Rio, the developer who is here with me right here, offered to meet with anybody and any neighbors. We've also done that, I think, with every city council member has been actually on the site, on the property, to see it, to feel it, to kind of walk around, to get a vision for what it could be. And that was where we got some of the ideas and suggestions from council members about some things that we might be able to do with the project. We also had on-site meetings with neighbors that wanted to meet. And so we'll give you an update on those as we kind of go through. And Jesse did a great job of talking through the key planning issues, and I think it was brought up at the city council meeting that, you know, right now, without any commitments, additions about what the architecture is going to be or buffering or anything like that, the property can already be developed for 261 lots. So we're really talking about 29 lots, which in the scheme of development is insubstantial, particularly, hopefully, from the city's view of all the benefits that are coming from the development project and the additional commitments that are being made here. So we'll just walk through those as we go through it. But that is important, both from a comprehensive plan perspective, that this is well within the plan of what was anticipated to be developed out here. The 2040 plan, many of you were probably involved in that. That was months and months and months of work by numerous citizens throughout the city that worked on that comprehensive plan, that update, and that's the guiding document for the planning department, the planning commission, as well as the city council. When it's one thing to use to evaluate a proposed development project. And so this plan is well within what the comprehensive plan envisioned, and we've got hopefully some real positive things to talk about that has been done. As we've gone through the process, and Jesse mentioned we did have the PUD committee review the architecture, so the staff during that meeting confirmed that the actual home plans meet the city's UDO, and so there weren't variations from that, and those were unanimously approved this evening from an architectural perspective. One of the things that happened when we were out there at the site was some of those meetings. We went meeting with one of the council members. The request was currently today, if you've been out to the area, it's a gated entrance today, and there are these columns and fences that run along 113th Street in this area that you see in red highlights. And so one of the things that it was Councilmember Peterson who had asked, is there a way, and once you get to this end of the tree line, this is essentially a corn and bean field at that point. And so it's just an open area, a field along here. So there's a huge difference. This picture here shows you what it looks like along this stretch of 113th Street, but when you get here, it becomes just an open field. It's a different aesthetic than what you have along this part of 113th Street. So the request was, is it possible to extend the columns, sorry, I didn't have it up there, the columns and the fencing along this stretch of 113th Street, and then figure out a way to be able to supplement the trees, to be able to actually not just put the normal perimeter landscaping, but go above and beyond and put some additional landscaping along 113th Street so that can continue this look and feel from here all along 113th Street. So that's been agreed upon, and that's specifically in the PUD ordinance, so you'll see that in there, that's been agreed to. Council President Coble, when we were out there, asked, is there a way to make the executive district a gated community to provide some additional exclusivity to that area? And so the plan that you see today is different than what was originally submitted, because it now does provide that executive district is a gated community to provide that additional element of exclusivity for that particular district within the project. We also had, Paul Rio met then with a number of the neighbors, and some of the additional things that have been done. Jesse mentioned on Nestledown Farms, which is the neighborhood that's immediately to the west. That neighborhood was developed about 21 years ago with 6 lots. There have been 3 homes built in that last 21 years. And so what Paul Rio has done for along that border, you'll see in the PUD ordinance along here, those lots are the ones that Jesse mentioned will be larger. So those will be 33% larger than what's required today under R2. They'll also have full first floor brick wrap, and they also will have 3 additional evergreen trees planted along in the back 30 feet of the property. The Sundermans live on the corner over here at the northeast corner of 113th and Southeastern. And the previous plan, as Jesse mentioned, had a frontage road along the professional district here. And the Sundermans requested if Paul Rio could change the plan to have the homes facing inward rather than outward. And so he's made that change as well as agreeing to have a landscape berm with trees in addition to the street trees along Southeastern Parkway. Mr. Sloot, who lives here, he had requested that the developer agree to put some buffer along at the southern part of his property. I'm going to zoom in a little bit for you so you can see this here better. So Mr. Sloot's home is up here, and then the southern part of his property line is here. And he had requested additional buffering in that area. This exhibit's not showing it clearly, but what has been agreed to. This is right out of the PUD ordinance here. So that will have an additional buffer that's above and beyond what would ever be required under the current zoning. Actually, there's no buffer between residential and residential, so there would be no additional buffer there required. But that'll be a 30-foot buffer area, which will have the types of plantings and trees, the trees that would be required, if, as Jesse mentioned, if there was going to be a commercial development, a retail center developed there, what would be required between it and a residential home zoning district. That's what's been agreed to do there. And then the plan is also to have additional mounding and landscaping on the curb. And that street before went straight up, and there were more lots adjacent. We've got an exhibit here, I think. So the previous plan had the street going straight with lots backing up all along adjacent to Mr. Sloot's property on his southern boundary. And then the new plan shows that it's now been curved. It has another additional common area here. They'll have a landscape berm, some additional plantings on it as well. The other thing that Mr. Sunderman had requested and that Paul Rio has agreed to do as well was there is a row of trees along the this is the Sunderman property, and there's a row of trees that are along the frontage of their property by Southeastern Parkway. His request, in Southeastern Parkway, which was designed and built as a state highway. If some of us remember when that was State Road 238, now it's Southeastern Parkway. That is a primary arterial, and so the city requires that to be a 120-foot right-of-way. And so normally what happens when a developer proposes a project and then goes in and does the platting for the lots, the developer is required at no cost to dedicate to the city for free its half of the right-of-way. So currently it's planned to be a 120-foot right-of-way. And so in the normal case, Platinum, when they came in for their plating, would be required to dedicate at no cost to the city. It's half of that 60-foot right-of-way. Today, it looks like there's about a 90 to 100-foot right-of-way out there. And so what Mr. Sunderman has asked and Paul Rio has agreed to do, and we're putting this on the record, and as we go to the council, we'll put this in the PUD ordinance specifically, that he's agreed that he'll dedicate the right-of-way. So he's pushed his project to the west to allow, to grant, when he comes in and plats this area in front of the Sunderman's property, that he'll grant the additional right-of-way on the Grantham side of Southeastern, so that there'll be a full 120-foot width of right-of-way outside the drip line of the existing trees on the Sunderman's property. So that was a long explanation of an agreement that was asked for and agreed to by Paul Rio for the Sundermans. We also had, in one of the neighbor meetings we had a comment that this is, we were talking about paths and how, and Jesse mentioned how we're going to have over 4 miles of trails and 31,000 feet of sidewalks internal. We're also going to be connecting we'll be connecting, adding to the city's parks trail plan by putting the perimeter asphalt trail along 113th Street and up Southeastern Parkway. One of the neighbors in our meeting, this is just an exhibit showing all the parks, and if you had a chance to look through the materials that we submitted, you know, the city, the county, and the township have all invested, you know, millions of dollars in parks in this area. And generally, parks are designed and planned to be near where the residential development will be, not out by itself where there aren't people. It makes a lot of sense to be able to have these amenities near where the people can go. And so it's an amazing network of parks that are in the area, but one of the neighbors had made the comment to us, well, we can't even, you know, safely walk or bike down 113th Street because there's no trails there yet. A number of those properties have not been annexed into the city, and so that sometimes happens when you don't have development happening, you know, along that stretch yet. And so what we did is we reached out to the Parks Department and asked them, would you like us to build that trail from, so we'll be required to put the perimeter path, the 10-foot asphalt path along our perimeter. But then there's no connection right now. We were hearing from people that there's no trail along 113th Street to get down to the city's agri-park or the north-south trail connector or any of the other amenities that are in the area. So we reached out to the Parks Department and asked them, would you like this development to build that path in exchange for park impact fee credits? Because otherwise we'll be paying park impact fees. Those would go into the city's funds for park improvements. But we thought that was a comment that we heard from one of the neighbors, and we thought, well, is there a way for us to be proactive and make this, you know, even better? Again, it's not required. It's up to the city if they'd like us to do that, but we believe that that's certainly doable, subject to the, you know, easements to be able to install it. So we wanted to be able to share that with you as well. We're happy to answer any questions that you have, but we believe that we've responded to all of the specific neighbors that have reached out and have asked for on-site meetings or had made requests. We understand that Mr. Schlut has lived in the area for a long time, and I know that he's here tonight. He'll probably, I think Paul Rio even said in one of the meetings that normally neighbors would rather the development not happen at all and have it still be, you know, corn and beans in the area for a long time. And there's nothing, we can't really respond to that, but we're able to respond specifically to his request for the additional buffer. And so that's been agreed to and specifically provided in the ordinance. So we respectfully request tonight the Plan Commission's favorable recommendation to the City Council. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. I think we'll just go ahead, let's go ahead and open it up for public hearing. Please keep in mind that we do have time limits established. I'll read these just so I don't misspeak. 2 minutes for individuals, 5 minutes for spokespeople, petitioner rebuttal, 5 minutes. So I need everybody to limit their comments to 2 minutes. If you don't mind raising your hands to come up, and I'll call you to the podium. However, because we do have some people online, I want to make sure I get the online people to go first. So I'm not really sure how to do that because I don't see anything on the screen. So I'm looking around for my IT person to maybe help me here.
Well, we do have some general numbers, so I think you can just ask and see if anyone's
Okay.
willing to.
Is there anybody online that would like to make a public comment as it relates to this project?
We'll make sure they're unmuted.
And I don't know if you need to unmute them, Tracy?
I can't, but yeah, anybody who's online that would like to be on record, please be sure you unmute yourself and announce your name and address for the record, please.
Seeing that I don't believe I have anybody wanting to make a public comment online, I will go ahead and open it up to the auditorium. Please raise your hand, and when you come to the podium, please state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 2 minutes in which to give your comment.
Thank you, everybody. I'm Dr. Ryan Harris. I live in Valleys of Geist. More detail on the address than that, or Valleys of Geist is good?
No, we need the address for the
Okay,
record.
15104 Geist Ridge Drive. My major concern when I see this type of development is just the sheer volume. I initially moved into Summerlin Trails, quarter-acre lot. It was tight. I mean, my neighbor, we were stacked in. We're stacking them in even tighter than that. We say that the school board says, or Dr. Borf, or whoever with the school administration saying that we're good. My sixth grader last year before the plague was in mostly a boxcar for his entire education. My 16-year-old's been rezoned 4 times. We built a school that's full. I don't understand how we're good. HSE High School now ranked by USA Today like 19th. I think we're failing our children. We're just getting a little ahead of ourselves. The road, exceedingly dangerous. I'd like to see the infrastructure added. And then from a sustainability, which I didn't even think about, the area looks beautiful. My major issue, again, is the small lots and just the sheer number. And I think if there's any ability to push back, that'd be great, to cut down on just the sheer volume of families. Because you say professionals, but it's going to be people with 1 or 2 kids wanting to get in the district unless our schools keep failing us. But then from a sustainability standpoint, we have 106 homes currently for sale between 100 and 300,000. 106 homes on Zillow currently for sale in Fisher's area. These people are trying to move their houses, and we're going to fill in all these small homes. So I worry about the development taking a hot minute. But that's it. I think my time's up. Or did it even go?
Maybe we didn't even start it, but that's okay.
Is that a fancy way of saying?
You're within your 2 minutes.
Sweet. Well, I'm not going to keep talking, but just to summarize, we're crowded. Teachers are crowded. I'd love to know, at least go on record, who with the schooling is saying that we're good, because I'd like to see a little bit more action on their end of making sure that our kids are well taken care of. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Connie Martin, 12201 Florida Road, and I've been to these before, and I've never fought development. I've always asked you to do it wisely with the future looking forward. When you did Welchel Springs, which is right across from my house, I was here asking that at that time you have development such that you leave for the future Cynthia Ann Road extension straight down. There is no other than Oleo Road, there is no north-south direct road. Cynthia Ann stops now at there and then it picks up on the other end. I know everybody says the bridge is too expensive. The bridge can be 20 years from now, but if you leave development, fill in that gap, you will be crisscrossing all the way. Right now, you go to from down Cynthia Ann, you hit Southeastern Parkway, you go either way. Florida Road doesn't go through. They're just, I would like you to be smart and look to the future. Everybody says the 2040 plan didn't, but has everything been in accordance with the 2040 plan? Things have just gone at a rapid stage with the good economy. I would just like you guys to look at the future. Traffic, they say, isn't that bad. If it's been in the last 6 months, okay, there's no schools right now, people are working at home, Ruoff hasn't had a concert. So yes, right now, traffic is not bad, but a year ago, traffic was horrible. A year from now, traffic's gonna be horrible. 296 houses versus 260, that's 11% more. Who said that just a few more houses? That's 11%. The lot sizes, 6,000 square feet, what's that, 1.3 acres? Even the 11,000 square foot, you know, you go 11, oh, the lot is 11,000 square feet. That's a quarter of an acre, not even a quarter of an acre.
And that's
So-
time. Sorry.
All right,
Thank you, Connie.
just give it some thought before you.
Yes, sir, in the back?
Marion Hensley, 12089 Atlantic Road. I represent adjacent landowner of the Hensley property east of Southeastern Parkway, so adjacent to this development. First thing is, I didn't see anything in the report from the planning here that talks about the return on investment with all these kids that are going to come with this and the debt load for the school. As Connie said, you know, they said it's all fine. Fine if you're not the one paying the taxes that have constantly gone up, the property taxes and the additional debt load for all the new schools we're building. So, that point. Second point, to the east of this property is all low density or agriculture, in our case, of our family. And we're going to put the highest density portion next to other large lots. It's a contrast to land use. That doesn't seem like good planning. Now, you might argue, oh, look at the 2040 plan. All of our property to the east is no longer going to be low density if you look at that plan. So what is the plan to let this help force us out in the next 20 years to your 2040 plan? Just raising the devil's advocate question, what is the intention? So, thirdly, I'd like to get a commitment from the developer that for the folks, all of us folks that are on the east side of the road, that the road improvements, including the turn lanes and the deceleration lanes and such, that are going to be required to satisfy the highway report, that all comes off of the existing right-of-way, or if any additional right-of-way will be included or needed to satisfy those recommendations, that comes off the developer's side of Southeastern Parkway. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Marion. Gentleman over here in the plot, I think, had his hand up.
Thank you. I'm Larry Kennedy, 11990 Florida Road, born and raised where I live. I have no objection to advancing the neighborhood. My concern is safety. You now have the golden and last opportunity to work with the developer to get Cynthia Ann Road straight through. You don't have to buy any houses. There's none in the road right now. There will be in the future. And even going down the future, if you go south of 113th Street and maybe to a bridge, you still don't have any houses to buy if you go straight through. I appreciate the effort the developer has made in plotting out this area. They've done a fine job. But we need to rethink the problem. Drive the area, go out and see what kind of a mess we got now, and it's not going to get any better. So please get Cynthia Ann straight through. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir. The gentleman behind you, I think I saw first. You're behind the podium. I didn't see the hand till later.
Sorry, oh yeah, sorry about that. Hi, John Bowdler. I live at 16677 A Shire, which is in Turnberry, and so I am one of the new residents here in Fishers. I used to live in Indianapolis itself, over by St. Vincent many years ago, so I'm criticizing my own actions since I just moved to Turnberry about 3.5 years ago. But the point I wanted to echo was raised by the doctor earlier. I think this is a great community, but I see all of the rooftops popping up in my subdivision. You know, you guys have approved amendments to their PUD twice to allow smaller homes. And when we moved here in 2016, it was marketed completely differently. Now they've tightened up and decreased the lot sizes, raised the number of houses they're going to put in. And I look at Welchel Springs, that place is growing very quickly, but it isn't filled in fully yet. So I think the question I have, in addition to all the questions about raising traffic count and the north-south roads and the schools, is the number of subdivisions that are what I would call incomplete. And I think that's a real risk when you look at the economy and all the other questions about growth and another housing crisis like we had in 2007 and 8, where, you know, we've got failed neighborhoods that are half cooked, and you've got to find new developers to come in and repopulate those neighborhoods because they're not fully funded out with their HOA boards and all the houses. So, you know, to me, I think it looks like a great plan. That's a fabulous part of our city there at 113th. But I just don't know if now's the right time. And I would, you know, request more information on all the other half-baked subdivisions we've got going in our neighborhood, because they're putting them up faster. So I guess I need to pay more attention to the city of Fishers. But I think there's, you know, a bright future, but we're just maybe growing out of control, because I heard now lot sizes were going to be a half an acre, and these lots proposed by the developer are nowhere near that. So I'd like to voice my request that you not approve this request.
Thank you,
Thanks.
sir. There's a gentleman right behind the podium.
Dennis Winslow, 16714 Southeastern Parkway. I too would like to express my concern for the safety. I've seen numerous bicyclists, I being one of them, and with the trucks coming out of IMI going both directions, it gets rather tedious at best, let alone you add 200 to 300 extra cars coming up and down that road. And at one point in time, when school was in session, I counted at least 13 school buses coming out of Cynthian Road down to the stop sign. How are you going to accommodate all those buses plus all the additional traffic that comes out of there? I'm not sure how you're going to do it. It just seems a little bit much for that particular area when you got people who want to get out and bike or run or whatever would happen to be, and there's very little room the way it is. And unless any of you have gotten out there and tried it, how do you know that it's safe to get out there and do it unless you've done it yourself? So I would just encourage you to just go out there sometime, not during the afternoon, but in the morning or in the evening, and especially when those school buses are going and those trucks are coming out of IMI, both to and from. And let's face it, those guys are trying to make a living, and I understand it. They do it by truckload. They're hustling, which means those trucks coming off that hill, coming down, they're not really, you know, going real slow. You don't hear a lot of brakes being tapped. And if you'd even just look down there at 113, that really isn't a stop sign. That just means stop if you want to. Nobody really stops. I've yet to see anybody do anything about that, but it's really very vague at best what people do down there. So you've got some safety issues you need to look at, let alone adding all these additional cars coming in and out of there. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Okay. There's someone here. Okay.
I don't know if I need the mask or not. Can you hear me with the mask on?
You can take it off.
Okay. Catherine Van Horn, I'm Britton Falls. And I did a little math that kind of works with what the others have said. With Hunter's Run being built out, and it's only maybe less than a third complete across from Britton Falls. Welchel Springs is even less than that. We have a total with Turnberry, Piper Glen, and whatever that other little thing is that is going to be 10 homes. I don't know what it is. We have 959 homes, of which maybe a third are built. The impact upon our schools is tremendous. That's what I'm hearing. The elementary opened maybe a year ago, and it already has a modular. Why does it have a mobile? We are not planning, and we're shortchanging our children. These that are incomplete, Welchel Springs, Turnberry, Piper Glen, Hunter's Run, are all family homes. They need the schools. They need good schools. That's a problem. Traffic, yes, I'll totally agree with that. A concern is Cynthiane because of the 2 schools that are off Cynthiane. Eventually, that is going to have to be 3 lanes in order to support the traffic. So I think what I'm saying is we need to pause, step back, check on our growth a little bit, see if we're really ready to sustain that growth. That would be my request. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Yes, sir.
Scott Sunderman, 16928 Southeastern. I'm sure Steve and Paul are going, oh my gosh, here he goes again, but as credit is given, as you heard, Mr. Rio visited after our last meeting. We've discussed a lot of things, and from the developer's standpoint, I was really impressed with some of the changes they were able to make within their plan, understanding that that's what they're here to do is develop that. But the rest of my attention goes to this side of the room and the same concerns as everybody else. I have a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old, Southeastern Elementary, 1 year in, and now they're in trailers. So I've yet to hear anybody actually get up here from the school board and tell us it's okay, and stand here and put that out there. I don't think it's okay, and that's going to continue to be my #1 concern are my children. Right now they're facing more uncertainty than they ever have. The one thing they have is a routine, and that's shattered right now. When they do return, I want them to be able to return to a routine. Not, hey, are we up in my classroom looking out the beautiful back area of Southeastern, or are we down in the trailer? The teachers need that too. They're suffering as much as the kids dealing with that, and if you talk to some of them, I think you'll hear that. So while I appreciate what the changes have been within the development, and they've gone a long ways to help with what they're proposing, for you guys, you have to figure out the school situation. It's not a state problem, it's not the school board. They can't build, plan, develop, and fund as fast as we're growing at certain times. So you need to help figure out how that's gonna work better. My other piece is communication. The reason I was so frustrated at the last city council meeting was a lack of it from a lot of angles. This time it's up here. I reached out to Mr. Brigado on June 30th, asking for some time. His team's been working with the developers routinely. I wanted to speak to him, ask if some adjacent neighbors could speak to him, maybe put away some concerns. Never heard back. That to me is concerning. That's a failure on our side. We have time to use them to plan and help the developers and pitch the sale. We as citizens should have time to put them out there and say, hey, maybe you can relieve some of my questions for them because a lot of it's for the city. But when I don't hear back and I don't get any time, that concerns me and that concerns my neighbors. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there another hand back here somewhere, I believe? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is John Waters. I'm at 10671 Geist Ridge Court, former neighbor of Pete Peterson. I've lived in Fishers and Geist, my family and I, since 2003. We bought a lot in 1999 in the Valleys at Geist area. Since the Fishers annexation in about 2009-10, we've observed our quiet streets filled with the countless 4,000-pound polluting vehicles, our schools overcrowded, countless neighborhood developments, strip mall bankruptcies, and an overbuilding of local churches. And I'm personally a man of faith, but there's a dozen churches on Oleo on just the strip there. It's just kind of crazy. There seems to be no comprehensive vision for quality of life, for quiet streets, for low crime, for world-class education, for parks and recreation, and the more. I can hardly ride a bike safely outside my neighborhood now. 5 years ago, I ride about 30 miles. I go up out of my neighborhood up to Pendleton, come back around Ruoff and back. 5 years ago, 2015, I passed about 10 cars either way. Today, I went this morning, I counted, I passed 10 cars in the first half mile out of my neighborhood, including gravel trucks that practically ran me over. So it's a war zone to live in a neighborhood that we moved out here to from a safety perspective. So the proposed development is a fundamental disaster, in my opinion, that will lower home values, increase traffic, overcrowded schools, curtail the Hoosier spirit. So I'm kind of joining the chorus here of asking you to kind of stop this insanity. It's crazy. This isn't what we call Hoosier quality of life and the city of Fishers and Hamilton County even. So please just say no and focus on more green space, more bike lines, more gathering centers where people can walk to enjoy their lives as opposed to driving 4,000-pound SUVs everywhere they go to strip malls on heavy asphalt roads where salt is poured every winter and these cracking has to be replenished. It's all waste. It's just taxpayer expense that just doesn't need to happen. So please embrace a vision where development flourishes and can grow among natural resources where people can safely, and Fishers has done a great job in some areas of this, but it's all kind of isolated, and here's another isolated development that doesn't connect to the rest of the system, and here we got neighbors that live here and love this property, and we moved out here to have green space, and now it's all being taken away from us, and it's just kind of frustrating. This is the first time I've ever come here as well in 20 years. So the last thing I believe we need is another quick-built development when the following subdivisions are still empty: Flat Fork, Legacy at Hunters Run, Piper Glen, Turnberry, Welchel Springs, Vermillion, and several others. So I thank you for hearing us, thank you for listening to us, and thank you for considering our opinion that's just as valid as any developer that wants to make progress. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
So my name's Eric Moore. I have recently purchased within the last 6 months, 16478 Southeastern Parkway. It's directly on the east side of the property, right directly across this development. A couple points. Me too. I'd like to thank Mr. Rio for taking the time to meet with us, and they've certainly made some changes. But I'd like to offer a little different perspective in that I've spent the last dozen years living in Zionsville, and recently have decided to, in essence, build a forever home for my wife and my family, and purchased this 25-acre tract of land that is also zoned R2, right? And, Mr. Harden and, Mr. Rio and developers want to sit up here and say, oh, this is 30 homes more than what can already be built on this because it's zoned R2. Well, I'd argue this area of Fishers is some of the most beautiful property, certainly that's within reach of common amenities. And I am living proof that I'm going to build a single-family residence directly across the street from this development and incorporate 25 acres of land. And I'm extremely confident that if you guys stand up and vote no to this particular project, there are plenty of people that would go out and buy 10, 15, 20 acres of this beautiful property and build an estate home on it, and can maintain the overall aesthetic, beauty of this particular area, and also not continue to, flood the schools and, contribute to safety issues and so on and so forth that many of these neighbors and residents of Fishers are talking about. So I just ask you guys to, not be concerned as to whether or not this property can be beautifully developed and maintain its current state, because I'm extremely confident it can, and I'm living proof of that. Moving away from a beautiful area in Zionsville with great schools to come to another beautiful area that has great schools and be able to build a home. I guess the only other question I would have, it's my understanding that the ER property directly across from my property, which is I think two lots, that's 16 acres, one 5-acre and I think one 11-acre. The slides up here were showing that it was only 11 acres. Is that accurate or is that not accurate? It's saying it's 158 acres, incorporating 11 acres of that 16 acres.
We'll get to your question because your 2 minutes is up. So what's the question about that particular parcel?
Is it incorporating all 16 acres, or is it incorporating 11 as they displayed,
It is incorporating all 16 acres. 11 of those 16 are zoned ER, and the remaining 5 is R2.
okay, so it is all 16?
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, appreciate your time.
Is there someone else? I think I saw someone try to make a move here. Roland? Doug, not you. You'll get next. You always like to go last anyways, Doug. I think maybe Tracy can make that happen. The man behind the curtain. Or Steve, who uses it all the time. No, we didn't get there, Steve.
Anyway, I usually see traffic, I usually see accidents in front of my house on a monthly basis. My name is Roland Schlope, Vietnam era veteran, 40-year resident in a historic 1860 farmhouse located at 16501 Southeastern Parkway. My property is zoned as state residential as other property owners in this area. The Beckers and McGuires have also enjoyed the privacy, tranquility, enjoyment, and quality of life this status brings. Beckers and McGuires, who will no longer live here, are the few beneficiaries of the Grantham proposal rezoning for high-density housing. I have trust and confidence city officials will recognize and share legitimate issues and concerns of area residents that call Fishers their home and implement existing 2040 plan. This housing proposal will negatively impact and compromise my quality of life and other area citizens. We do not share the views and interests of this Grantham housing proposal. This housing proposal should meet or exceed existing zoning standards to adjoining property owners and adequately mitigate and minimize foreseeable adverse effects. I recognize Platinum developers have made some modifications. McGuire's 16-acre zones ER were not part of the original Grantham proposal. I respectfully request that this parcel be removed from this proposal, or larger lots matching Nestle Down Farms area. Of course, there are numerous concerns during and after construction: noise, light, air pollution, high-density housing, trespassing on my wooded property. We all recognize lacking road infrastructure, overcrowded schools to support high-density housing. I quote, "Grantham will take advantage of one of the most beautiful pieces of residential properties in Fishers and boasts of creeks, ravines, and significant stands of mature trees."
Roland, can you finish up your 2 minutes?
Okay, well, that's the back of my property. I have 17 of these homes around my property, and some of them are 6,000 square foot lots. And there's all kinds of issues everybody's aware of. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I saw somebody other than Doug. Was there somebody other than Doug? We want to leave Doug for last because he likes going last. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you're fine. Yep, green.
Thank you. I'm the McGuire in question. I do stand to profit from this development. We are the 16-acre parcel, and 32 years ago.
The address for the record, sir?
Oh, yes, 16601 Southeastern Parkway, Fortville. 32 years ago, we built out here. It was almost deep country. All the local farms all said, they'll never sell the farm. This will be the farm ground. We moved in, and like everyone, optimistically, we wanted to slam the door shut and keep it the way it was forever. Times change. We are now retired. We're intending to move to Lake Cumberland. We're going to sell one way or another. I hate to see the concerns of my neighbors. The density is startling, but this is a tide of suburbia washing over this area. This is not, to stop this particular project is a drop in the bucket. Drive around the subdivisions that they've mentioned and look at how many houses are there rather than vacant lots. Don't call them a failure because they're not building with 40 crews per development. They're building at a, I think, it looks to me when I cruise through there, they're coming right along. There's always multiple houses under construction. The traffic is terrible. You guys need to figure out how to slow down what was State Road 238. If it takes a roundabout at Cynthian Road, you need to get the speed down. That's why people are almost getting killed. There's a berm to ride bikes on. It doesn't stop a ton of people, but I do agree it's a dangerous situation. Slowing traffic down is the big thing. And this is somebody who gets trapped at his mailbox multiple times a week for 5 to 7 minutes just trying to get my mail when a wave of traffic comes. So if they were going slower, I would be more daring and run across. But thank you all very much.
If there's no one else, I'll let Doug come up. Anybody else? All right, Doug, your turn.
Can you put the map of the addition up here so I can reference that?
Steve can handle it, I'm sure.
Thanks, Steve.
You have to zoom out. Yep.
Yeah. Keep going. That's good. That's good. So, to kind of echo what
Doug Allman from-
Doug Allman, Fall Creek Township trustee, resident, 16124 East 126th Street, Fishers, 33 years here. And one of the things I'd like to point out to the Planning Commission as well as the planning board, the planning process is that I tried to really think of Fall Creek Township. As long as I've lived here, I've never seen a new road built. Never seen a new road. We've seen, housing developments build roads within that, but we're still using the county roads as the main transportation corridors. Nothing's been done to update that. And that's why you hear the problems that you hear. Cynthian Road, we talked about that when Welchel Springs came on board. You need a north-south corridor, and again, it's not addressed. 126th Street, I've talked to you guys about that. It's not a thoroughfare. And we need to move people, and we need to take some of the people to enter these housing additions off the main drags, but we keep using county roads that were built years ago. Nothing's changed, and so you're gonna have these problems, and development's coming. The schools have been mentioned. I can tell you, we own 20 acres that we bought from the HSC that was an elementary school. Now you're gonna need that back. They have no clue. They're building up in Durbin. They're building up in Wayne Township. So a lot of these issues that folks are raising, besides, some of the density, is because there's been a lack of planning. The 2040 plan, Becker and Steve was on this committee, and a lot of talk about this area being a state residential, and now we're back here doing more of the same. The mayor said we need areas for state residential, and now we're talking high density again. So, there's really been a lack of planning in this area. It just stuff using county roads, all flooding out on it, and it creates problems. And 113th Street, that's a narrow road. Pete, I know you think it can work, but it really can't. That's got to be widened. People want bike routes, they want sidewalks, they want to be able to walk and stuff, and there's just really been a lack of planning, and it's not so much this development, because this is no different than what we've seen.
Okay, Doug, you're over your two.
Okay, but I'm saying, something's got to be done to redesign the roads and accommodate this traffic.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to give another shot to our online people. Is there anybody online who wants to make a public comment? Hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And I know, Tony, do you want to make any comments? I know I want to get Jason in here too, because I know Jason's got some comments as well, Jason Taylor. So go ahead.
Well, normally we give 5 minutes to the petitioner if they want to
Steve,
rebuttal.
I'm sorry, yep. I don't know if there's anything, I was going to call you guys after we get our comments, but that's fine.
I don't think I'll need 5 minutes. I think there was, as far as responding to the comments, I think what we heard, a couple of people say high density. Let's just be really super clear. This is low density under the city's comprehensive plan, which is identified as between 1 to 2 units per acre. and this is at 1.85 acres. It's all relative if someone has a 10-acre home site or a 20-acre home, but this has been planned for low density under the City of Fishers guidance. Lots of people, hundreds of people were involved in the comprehensive plan update. It was widely known. Whoever was interested at the time wanted to be involved in it was able to do it, and that's the comprehensive plan that the city has today. I just want to clarify, this is not a high-density project under any stretch of the imagination. Secondly, we heard comments about traffic. I'm glad Jason Taylor, the city engineer, is on the line. Again, at the end of the day, the developer is not advocating that traffic is good or bad. We're subject to the city's requirements. The city has a thoroughfare plan. They require the developers to pay road impact fees, which is about $750,000 in this case. That will be paid by this project to help the city fund additional road improvements. We dedicate the right-of-way for no cost, so the city doesn't have to spend money, taxpayer dollars, to acquire right-of-way. And then we rely and have to listen to the professionals, the city's traffic consultants, and the city engineer to tell us what road improvements are necessary, and the developers then have to do that as part of the project. That we look forward to Jason confirming what the city's consultants have already said about traffic. And then there was comments, we heard a lot about schools. We've heard that, historically in Fishers, as development moves along, and typically it's moved from the central part of the city and it's moved progressively east, is what's happened as the utilities and the sewer utility was extended. And each time it got to that frontier area, we would hear in meetings like this, the schools are overcrowded, we're just busting at the seams, this is going to wreck the school district. And I certainly appreciate everybody's comments. I've raised my family here, my kids here, but my family, that now we are empty nesters because our 3 kids are now out of school. But we haven't moved from Fishers, and what you'll see from the school district's demographic studies, which they do pretty regularly, the most recent one was in the fall of 2019, and what the school district studies say, and if anyone reaches out to the school, you'll hear them confirm this, that the school district sees the future, they flatten the curve. So we used to be, 15 years ago, the school district was growing like this, now it's flattened. And you'll see school district-wide, not much of an increase. If anything, in some years it's showing a dip. But there will be areas in the school district where there are more greenfield to be developed. Those will have more redistricting and more kids in the individual school because of the natural growth. One new development is not going to increase the demand for new homes. The city will have the same number of new families moving in, based on market demand. The school impact, again, there's no question that any new development, any new home that has children is going to have more kids coming into the schools. The reason that the school district demographic study shows that it's flattening is that you have kids every year graduating from the school district and going off to college. But then you also have families that are here that love the city of Fishers, like our family does, that are not moving. And so you've got houses that used to have 3 kids that now have no students in their house, but then so that's why they see this as flattening and evening out. So that's our thought back on the school district. We recognize that in any growing community that is vibrant, that people want to live here and move here, we're going to continue to have challenges on those frontier areas where there still is new development happening, and most of that is in this area. And that's what we'll see for probably the next decade. And then lastly, we heard a couple of comments about lack of planning. I think a lot of us here in this room have been involved for 20 plus years with the city's planning and growth, and I think that is an unfair comment, frankly. I think that the city's done a terrific job of planning. We've got first-rate planning department, engineering department professionals. We've had lots of community input over the years with comprehensive plans. Those of you serving voluntarily on the Planning Commission know that and have seen it firsthand. So it's somewhat easy to say, well, this is not planning. This is, you're approving high-density projects. Again, this is not high density. This is a well-thought-out, well-planned development that's consistent with the city's guidance documents. And so we would respectfully request your favorable recommendation this evening to the City Council. And again, we continue to remain open to if any of the particular neighbors have specific comments or requests and they want to reach out to myself or Paul Rio as we go from here to City Council. We're happy to continue to do that. Some of the questions were more policy-driven, obviously, what we heard tonight. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. Just under the wire for 5 minutes, too. Tony?
Yeah, thank you. And now, first off, I want to apologize to Mr. Sunderman because I don't recall ever receiving a call or a voicemail, and I went through my emails real quick, and I don't have any record of that. So I pride myself on reaching out to citizens, especially within 24 hours. I always try to contact someone, so I don't know where the disconnect is there, but I'm still open before council meeting if you want to meet, and I do apologize because I don't have any recollection of that. But I'll share my screen as well to paint the picture, because I think as Steve was trying to say, and why we keep saying only 29 more lots, is because we do understand, right, zoning is relative to the neighborhood that we're speaking to. But the reality is that this has been residential history, zoned residential for historical property at R2. And so if we were looking at, say, all farmland that was agriculture, or all estate residential, or all commercial land that we're changing to residential, you know, I think there's a lot of concerns and comments being made that we would look at differently than we are today. So again, by right, zoned R2, and with the 11 lots of estate residential, it's going to be allowed to, you know, build 261 by right. If they pulled out from the PUD, they can come in, file a subdivision map tomorrow, and there's nothing we can do. We can't add extra buffering. We can't get additional right-of-way. We can't get executive homes, architectural standards beyond what the UDO requires. And so we have to think about it in that angle. So when planning's saying, what we're looking at, we don't believe there's a significant impact, we're looking at, because it's 29 additional homes what's allowed by right. For better or for worse, you know, the schools are where they are today, and my conversations, not with the school board, but it was administration in their finance department, and they're looking at the demographics. They had more kindergarten than they anticipated, and that, they said they can never anticipate. They don't know, unfortunately, how many times people are having kids, so until they come in there, they never know at that level, but the other levels they can project. And so with the schools, Durbin had to be rebuilt either way. And so even if this project doesn't happen, they'll be redistricting out there, because Durbin, when the new school is built in Wayne Township, they are going to have to move some of these kids around with or without this development. But when they look at future growth, the property was already zoned R2 for Becker, and so they look at these projections knowing that there could have already been 260 homes out there. And so I can't say that everyone told me it's fine, but they said, one, this development, it's going to take usually a year to start construction. Then they start selling homes, and if you're lucky, you probably build the development out in 7 years. And at that time, they're going to redistrict the school way before then anyways, before this project's even complete, and possibly before it starts construction when the new school's complete out in Wayne Township. So that's gonna shift no matter if this development occurs. And again, zoned R2, that's what we're looking at today. From the zoning map, because I want to comment and do kind of just respectfully disagree on the planning side, is that we have looked at this area. It was studied back in the land use plan and the comp plan, as well as the transportation plan. And so I will be, fair saying I wasn't here until the comp plan was just approved, so I don't know some of the history of the discussion of the roads. But my understanding was these county roads, which are not quite sufficient today, but as we continue to develop out there, we're getting right away and they'll be expanded. The thought is, again, this area is meant to be more nature and preserved. And so we don't want major roads like you see in the middle of the city elsewhere. We want to preserve some of the open space. And then also you got to deal with the terrain in Fall Creek and crossing over Geist. And so putting Cynthia all the way through, from my understanding, what I've been told by the people involved in the transportation plan, is that was never contemplated, it was never anticipated. And so when Wetchell Springs came through, Cynthia is shown to go through here, and eventually, if this property to the west ever redevelops, it'll connect the Florida Road, and eventually Florida Road will be widened when that's all future developed. As for the estate residential that Mr. Ullman talked about, within my second year here, we went ahead and we did, we involuntarily went to the property owners and said, we're gonna rezone you whether you like it or not. We designated all these tan parcels here estate residential. This was the additional residential land that we wanted to maintain for estate zoning. We went in and it was originally zoned R2. We initially got some pushback from Luxhaven. I think there was some confusion. They thought it was going to be developed right away, and we're saying no. But what we're putting in today is actually less than half of what is allowed by right. So we did go through and zone a bunch of areas for estate residential to be in line with the comp plan and try to provide that estate residential homes that the mayor has talked about, as well as Mr. Ullman. So this property here was never considered to remain estate residential. It's always been zoned R2. And so, again, when we're trying to paint the picture here is about 29 additional homes, because again, we can't stop anything less than 261. It would be nice if someone came in, I'm sure, to buy 10-acre lots, but it's not possible, or it would have happened with the development next door, but we have to consider what's in front of us. And so we're looking at the proposal, and from our standpoint, at least from a planning perspective, we believe that this is above and beyond what you would get under R2. And they've gone through and worked substantially with the neighbors to address it. They've put in buffering that, again, if it was developed as R2, would not even be required. When you're residential, next to residential, you don't need any buffering, except for perimeter landscaping on Southeastern Parkway. They wouldn't have to put any against the neighbors. So they've gone above and beyond what we would get from a standard development of the UDO. And staff believes that this is a high-end project that would benefit the neighbors compared to what would be built by right. Again, like I said earlier, if we were talking about converting farmland that was agriculture, this would be a whole other different conversation and context from me. But we have to look at what is presented today, what's allowed by right, and the property rights of this area. And when people, like a developer, buy land, they look at all the zoning documents, the transportation plan, the comp plan, and we can only get from them what is allowed within the city's jurisdiction and authority to do so. So we do believe that this is, that they've done their best to address it, and that it could be a benefit to the neighborhood given what's allowed by right. This will be above and beyond that. And we believe that the concerns they have, I mean, though they're gonna work out over time, as Fishers continues to grow, the roads will be improved, the schools have to redistrict no matter what. And again, the intent is try to keep this area as preserved as much as possible. And within the PUD, if they did not do a PUD, they can remove every tree they wanted. There is no tree preservation in the city. I mean, they would have to work around drainage and creeks and those things, and that would still be an issue. But, so I don't know the overall density they would get, but they could wipe all the trees out, and they're not doing that. They're going above and beyond and adding additional trees and moving trees around the property. So we just want to point that out, that we believe they've done the best that they can with this project. And staff's available for any additional questions.
Thanks, Tony. I know I've got Jason Taylor. I know he's online. Jason Taylor is our Director of Engineering. Jason, specifically, there's been a number of comments made about the safety aspects in Southeastern, the connectivity that we're going through, et cetera, et cetera. Can you talk about the plans that we have from your engineering department side on that thoroughfare?
Yes, I can. So with the comments related to Cynthia Ann Road, we do have in our Comp 2040 plan, and even previously to the Comp 2040 plan, it was adopted whenever the city was a town. Florida Road was considered a primary arterial, and it still is today, although it's not built out as such yet. As Tony was alluding to, as projects come on, the development comes online, right-of-way is dedicated, and then, as Steve was discussing, road impact fees are then utilized to help fund those projects. The engineering department has been extremely successful in the past 5 or 6 years of being awarded federal funds, so we are leveraging our dollars to the maximum with 80-20 splits in federal funding to be able to perform more for less. And on an annual basis, we evaluate the roadways within the city's jurisdiction to determine if it would be a good candidate for pursuing federal funds. And that is not just for intersection improvement projects, but it is also for the actual roadway improvements, whether it be a widening of a project, an existing roadway to a wider 2-lane road due to safety concerns, or if it is widening to a 3-lane or 4-lane roadway. Specifically to Cynthia Ann Road, we have a project that is going to be coming to construction next summer. It's at Southeastern and Cynthia Ann, and that will address a couple of the concerns. One, it'll address access onto Southeastern and the safety, as well as what one of the residents had mentioned related to speeds. It will help slow speeds in that area. We have in our plans additional future plans to connect Cynthia Ann over to Florida, which is, again, an arterial. And at that time, we would look at those impacts of that connection to determine if there is an additional need for improvements of the Florida road. I would anticipate that at that time we would need to do something, and we would be working towards applications for funding prior to that, whether it be local or be federal funds. The specific to this particular development, they have worked extremely close with our planning department as well as the engineering department and our traffic consultant, and have accommodated all of our comments to date. And one of those comments is to allow for that internal connection to Welchel Springs, which helps keep the the traffic off of the main arterial roadways or even the collector roadways, and helps them distribute to certain locations such as our future roundabout intersection project. In addition, on this Grantham proposal, they are breaking the development up such that there is a section there are two sections that are going to Southeastern Parkway, which is previously State Road 238 and has a high capacity available to it. And then there's the state portion, the executive portion, that is directly outletting onto 113th Street. So they have done a very good job of working with our department, our traffic consultant, to make sure that the traffic is diverted evenly amongst our roadway network. In addition, on the 113th Street access, originally it was going to be a single point of entrance exit, but after further discussions, it was determined that it would be better for it to be an entrance at one location and exit at another location. And the need for right turn lane, dedicated turn lanes, is currently not anticipated. And then even with this development and the access locations that have been presented, if this were to be built out day one, we do not anticipate that there would be a need for the current stop condition at 113th and Southeastern Parkway to be changed to anything. But we have went ahead and worked with the developer to obtain the right-of-way necessary for a future roundabout for whenever that need is there. And then at that point, it would save taxpayer dollars on purchasing that right-of-way and also impacting homes that are currently being built. I'd be happy to help answer any additional questions or further elaborate if there's a need.
No, thank you. I think they did a good job, Jason. I appreciate it. Public comment is closed, by the way, folks. There's any other comments from staff? Okay. I just want to, and I'm going to open it up to my commission here in a minute, but I do want to point out a couple things just so the crowd understands. We are not an approving body as a planning commission. Okay, the approving body is the city council, which will meet, what is it, next Monday or 2 Mondays from now, I believe. Help me out with the date, Tony.
Yeah, but this may go to the September meeting, so we're not sure yet.
Okay, September meeting for city council, go ahead and approve. So we're just a recommending body, number one. I want to make sure everybody understands that. You know, number two, there was a lot of comments about the schools. I would like to tell you that we have control over the schools. We don't, okay? We work with the schools as much as humanly possible to try to get them to understand what's going on, and it's a very good relationship, and our mayor has a very good relationship with those folks. You know, our tax dollars that are paying for that, you know, they changed that tax dynamic a while ago, so your sales tax is now paying for operations of schools, the portion of your property taxes, it pay basically for debt and transportation for the schools. Your school questions really need to show up at a school board and express those questions to the schools. Staff talks to the schools to make sure that we can do developments in accordance so that it'll work, and their answer is yes. So we've got to take them at their word and know what that is, and I appreciate the frustration of trailers out there, but there's a lot of state law that goes on what they can and can't do too. So again, we are very cordoned off on the ability for this particular body to make decisions, right? We are given a decision. A person has got a property right. They are allowed to do with that property everything within the zoning standards that we put in place and the state puts in place. That's our job. Okay, beyond that, all the rest of, you know, some of the mitigating stuff that you guys are talking about, I'm not arguing with you, aren't concerns, but they're not dealt with here. We can't do anything about that. That's not our purview in this particular forum, right? We've got to make a decision based on zoning and property rights and making sure that it meets the standards that Fishers puts forward. So that being said, I'm going to open it up for comments on my board. Why don't we go online first? Let's go online so I can get the online people. So Howard, do you have any comments?
I had to unmute myself.
Yeah, no
thanks, Pete. No, I think they were answered. Tony answered the questions I had regarding density, and then also you and Tony clarified the issue for the public and also for the board, in my opinion, regarding the school-related issues. So no, I don't have any further comments.
And as a former school board member, he just articulated that too. So thanks, Howard. Who else do we have online? I think Bill Stewart's on there. Bill, any comments?
No, I'm good.
Thanks, Bill. Anybody else on there? Were they the only two?
They're the only two plan commission members.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a question. Are they asking for a variance, or is that required for them to go to the 290 as opposed to the 260? Or that's just within our,
Well, they're just doing the PUD, and so under the PUD, they're asking for the additional, but it's giving a range of density versus just complying with R2.
okay, that's all I would think.
Yeah.
Is that it? Our public comment is done, so. Yeah, so I just want to. Okay. Ann?
Okay, well, first of all, when I came on the commission, I was told that our job was to judge for land use, our view, and that the land is used correctly and appropriately. I don't agree with this development because I live in the area and I see the traffic and I see the safety issues. I see people passing farm equipment on these teeny tiny little roads. It's scary. I think that if you want to develop, you need to do the Cynthia Ann thoroughfare or do something to get the traffic moving better. And I think you need to do the roads before you throw in another 300 houses. I don't think and I think it's kind of opposite of what you're trying to promote in the area. We have the agricultural park, big magazine came out, that's really cool. The kids can come out, see gardens and fields and some countryside rather than concrete and bricks. And then just a mile and a half from there, you're gonna put in 300 houses. I think you're conflicting yourself. So I can't agree with it. I just don't think it's a good use of the land.
Brad?
I've got about 5 issues. One, back in 2013, 2014, Jeff Hill was the city engineer before Jason, and I sat down with, I made a living designing subdivisions for many, many years. And as Jason knows and can say, a city needs north, south, and east-west thoroughfares, preferably one every mile. Nice to have them every half mile. We go from Oleo Road 3 miles all the way to Atlantic, no north-south road. When I sat down with Jeff Hill in 2013-14, there was a thoroughfare plan that showed Cynthia Ann Road going north-south through the Becker property all the way to 104th, so we can get into Noblesville all the way up to 3238. Cynthia Ann Road goes there. And then all of a sudden, when they start to do the 2040, it disappears. As an engineer, doesn't make any sense to me to do that. We have destroyed our road system on this whole area. Doesn't make sense why it's not there. I would love to see it back in there. Two, the engineer's report that A&F Engineering said, based on field review, is apparent that the site distance for the driveways may be problematic. So I'm very concerned, Jason, that you're listening, that the left-hand D cell, A cell, and bypass lanes get built on 234 if this project goes, to make sure we don't create another safety problem. People doing 50, 60 miles an hour in Southeastern coming around that curve. And I believe everything these people have said. It's gonna get worse. Number 3, the trees on 113th, and I've discussed this with Steve Harden. They're beautiful in aesthetic, but in Greenfield, where I used to live, out in the county, on a Sunday after church, a minister and his family were leaving, and a tree fell across the county road and killed him and his wife. And the trees look beautiful, but in my opinion, based on the experience that I had to deal with in Greenfield, I'd like to see them all gone. They're dangerous where they're standing, and somebody is going to get hurt or killed when those trees start falling. I'll guarantee it. Okay. Number 4, less play with the math, Steve. You're saying 158 acres. 61 acres is open, non-development land. We're really looking at 97 acres, not 158. R2 zoning at 1.7 times 97 is 165 lots, not 290. You are asking for an increase of 125 lots, over 100%, or an increase of 125 from 165. So let's deal with the real math. You're trying to get 3 lots per acre instead of 1.7 lots per acre. The ER was discussed for years. This piece is R2. There's nothing really, as Tony said, we can do about it. They could come in tomorrow and pull a permit for R2. In my opinion, with the school situation, and I am a little concerned, I don't mean to be knocking you, I was a mayor in Greenfield, and I worked with the school board and slowed down growth so we didn't have to keep building new schools. There doesn't seem to be that relationship here in Fishers. We just approve it and then we get our taxes raised to pay for schools above our 1%. I'm concerned about trailers 1 year after a school opens. We have approved just since 2016, in the last 4 years, this city has approved 3,129 lots in that 2 square miles. I don't know what the latest census is per house. If it's 2 kids per house, that's 6,000 kids in 2 square miles when they build out all the subdivisions. And I don't think the school's ready for 6,000 kids in that 2 square mile. So based on my experience of designing subdivisions for 30 years, working with engineers on the thoroughfare plan and everything else, I'm against the PUD, and it should stay R2 and let them develop at R2 at 165 acres. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Rick, do you have any? No? Todd?
So I'm still deciding on this project, and I've reached out to the school board. I reached out initially when this proposal was brought to us, and I emailed the school board and asked for feedback. And so I'm still waiting for a few. I've got several responses, but I'm still waiting for a few. And I don't feel that that's fair for me to make, since I'm on the city council as well. Until I get all the information, I'm not going to make a decision, yay or nay, just so we're aware of that. And the other issue that I brought up to Steve, the developers, were just that at 113th, just looking at making sure that the entrance, the guard shack, trees, that was very important to me in terms of what the project is, because it's a beautiful area. And so those are the 2 factors I wanted to make sure. I've got kids in the school, our school system. My wife's a teacher in the school system, so it is near and dear. And I hear both sides of this. At the same time, there are property rights, and we want to make sure that we're delivering on that. So I'm waiting for that feedback from everybody. They promised me they'll give me their feedback just so I can at least gauge. I'm not going to make my decision just based on what they say, but I want all the information before I make a decision.
Thanks, Todd. Just a couple of quick comments, and certainly I appreciate everybody coming here and voicing their concerns and whatnot. I understand it's a sensitive area. I live out in the area. I'm right there. I travel that area constantly. I see the traffic. I see the speeds. I go up and down Florida Road. I have Ann yell at me sometimes they're going too fast, and I get it. I mean, so I hear everybody talking about that. Again, the way that I'm looking at this is I cannot take away somebody's land rights. I can't do it. That's not within our scope. I'm not going to dispute Brad's math at all, but if they go and they develop that entire parcel, all those woods that were in there are gone. Gone. You're not going to get them. They're going to clear cut them. They're going to put houses all over them. Okay, that's the issue with R2 that you have. You get what you get because it meets a certain standard. With the PUD, it's allowing us to go ahead and try to drive up the quality
that we're gonna get for there. It's driving up the buffering, it's driving up, the setbacks, it's driving up the right-of-ways which we can get. We're getting some accommodations made along particular corridors, the extra buffering to the west, the additional setbacks off to the east side, and only doing one-story houses on that side, because I want to protect that corridor as well. The issue that comes to me is I still go, what can and can't we do by law, right? So if we say we're not going to approve this, and it goes to city council, and they approve it, it happens. If we go to them and we say that's not going to happen, and city council says no, they go back and they start looking to develop at R2. They don't go back to planning commission. They don't go back to the PUD committee. They just go to TAC and they can start building homes. I just want everybody to understand where this is at and where our decisions are going to lie when we have to make these decisions. So we're not doing them arbitrarily. I've walked those properties with Paul, and I've made lots of suggestions as we went down through the project to try to get this thing to be the least impactful for the area residents or around there. Although I do understand everybody's frustration. I'm out there. I want to protect 113th Street as much as I possibly can and that southeastern corridor. There is going to be vast improvement along Southeastern in time. Again, I can't give you answers about the school. I recommend you go talk to the school board. The churches, someone mentioned churches. We had an auditorium full here when we did a layover zone to not allow churches and schools and municipal buildings along the I-69 corridor. Our hands are completely tied when it comes to churches building in the city. If they find a piece of ground, almost regardless of what it's zoned, they can put something in there unless we've got an overlay zone on top of it. Am I wrong, Tony? I got my attorney nodding yes, so I think I'm accurate in that. So again, I hear what you guys are saying, but I want you guys to understand that we still have to deal with our lane, what we can deal with, what's within the law, what's not within the law. So if we go ahead and we don't approve this, city council approves it, it's good. If we don't approve it and they don't approve it, it's gone. Paul's going to go back. He's going to take a look at potentially develop an R2 with none of the extra stuff we talked about and potentially clear cutting all those trees. So looking at that from my perspective, I'm trying to drive the best development I possibly can because it's not going to stop. Someone will develop that land. And I want to make sure we have as much control over what's going on there as humanly possible. Okay, as it relates to whether it's needed or not, that's a market condition factor that I can't decide. That's not up to me, not money I'm putting in there. I'm going to leave that to Paul, who's done this quite a bit as a developer. If he thinks he can make a go of it and make a living, guess what? That's the kind of world we live in, right? It's up to him to make that development work for him and his partners. So with that being said, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for coming. I heard and appreciate what you've done. I've taken some of your comments back to the developers to try to add some of those standards into this particular project. I, for one, am going to be in favor of this as we move forward, only because the factors that we're able to drive up the actual quality of what I think the project is going to turn out to what it could be. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and I guess I'll call for a motion.
Nobody's ever walked my property.
Do I have a motion? Okay, I got a motion. We have a second.
Second.
I've got a second. It was Bill Stewart.
Yeah.
Can I get a roll call vote, please, Kay?
Yes. Mr. Stewart,
Aye.
Mr. Zimmerman, Mr. Fain,
Yes.
Ms. Logan, Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Moulter, Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Mr. DeReamer.
No.
Mr. Richards. Ms. Kelly.
Motion passes with a favorable recommendation to City Council. Again, that City Council meeting will be held the 21st, thanks, Brad, September 21st. So you guys all get another bite at the apple if you want one, September 21st in front of City Council, where the action can be approved or not. So this is just a recommendation to City Council. Again, I want to thank everybody there. Do we have any staff comments or new business?
There's no other items on the agenda, no.
With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. I have a motion to adjourn. We're adjourned.